Forget about that fragile, gross little creature leaving a slime trail on your porch. You know the one. Just a tiny speck of salt from your kitchen spice jar accidentally falls on it, and that land snail melts and dies instantly. Pathetically weak, right? But what in the world is actually happening under the water? Right now, deep at the bottom of the ocean, there are snails swimming around freely in billions of tons, which is about billions of metric tons, of sea salt without a single scratch. Not only that, they do not bother chewing on mindless leaves. They eat meat, they stab, and they kill. Welcome to the world of the most vicious biological machines on the planet. These monsters, disguised in snail shells, possess venom so terrifying that the amount needed to stop your heartbeat forever is even smaller than the grain of salt that just killed its land-dwelling cousin. A tiny creature can easily take down a human tens of thousands of times larger than them in the blink of an eye. But wait, why is it that within the same species, carrying the same heavy shell, only the underwater ones were allowed to evolve into demons? What harsh conditions at the bottom of the sea forced a sluggish body, moving slower than a glacier, to suddenly transform into an apex predator that never misses a target? And exactly what deadly liquid is flowing inside them, turning a silent stab into a death sentence with absolutely no antidote? On land, a hearty meal for a snail is usually just a rotting leaf. You know, leaves are famous for not having a nervous system, and most importantly, they do not have legs to run away. Evolution never requires you to become a cold-blooded killer if your food is just a plate of salad sitting perfectly still all day. But down in that violent ocean, the favorite food of these assassin snails is fish. Try putting that into perspective. Compared to a leaf, a fish is completely out of its league. They are sharp, alert, and swim incredibly fast. Now imagine if a cone snail, a creature moving at a pathetically slow snail's pace, lunged to stab a fish, and that fish had even 5 short seconds to react. Boom, it is gone. It would swim a whole football field away before the venom even had a chance to enter its bloodstream. And just like that, our hunter just lost a dinner and wasted its only defensive weapon. To survive as a fierce predator at the bottom of the sea, while moving as slow as an iceberg yourself, you cannot wait for the venom to take effect slowly. You have to become a literal kill switch, turning off your target's lights instantly. But how on earth can a slimy, squishy lump of meat launch a lightning-fast strike to take down a fish swimming at breakneck speeds? To do the impossible, the cone snail completely redesigned its body, evolving its normal chewing parts into what scientists literally call a biological sniper rifle. Just look at how they are built. Most normal snails use a fleshy ribbon covered in thousands of microscopic teeth to scrape algae off rocks. That action is as slow as you using sandpaper to scrub something. But the cone snail ditched that vegan lifestyle millions of years ago. It pulled out a single tooth, hollowed out the core, sharpened it to a lethal point, added a deadly barb at the tip, and turned it into a piercing harpoon, highly pressurized under intense force. It hides this weapon inside a flexible, muscular tube that can extend and point straight at the target, exactly like the barrel of a sniper rifle. This miniature machine lies perfectly still, burying its heavy body under the blurry sand at the bottom of the sea with chilling patience. And then, when an unlucky fish gets lured in and swims past its crosshairs, bam, the biological gun fires. The harpoon shoots out with terrifying force, enough to pierce through fish scales as hard as iron armor, burying itself deep into the flesh, and then deploys the barb to pin the victim in place like a giant meat hook. But hold on, piercing and pinning the target is only half the battle. What kind of evil stuff did that tiny harpoon actually pump into the prey's blood, making a frantically thrashing fish suddenly freeze like a stone statue in the blink of an eye? Instead of injecting a single type of venom, like a cobra or a poisonous spider, the cone snail plays a much more brutal game. It pumps straight into the victim's veins, a deadly cocktail, an insane and chaotic mix of hundreds of different, ultra-powerful neurotoxins called conotoxins. This terrifying liquid does not take time to cause pain. It violently short-circuits the entire nervous system, almost instantly. Imagine it is like a giant hand flipping the main breaker of a whole skyscraper. Every single muscle in the fish's body suddenly convulses and freezes all at once. That poor animal goes straight from swimming healthily to total full-body paralysis before its brain can even send the signal that it just got shot. But the absolute horror only really hits when this weapon of mass destruction targets a human. For us, a shot from a cone snail brings a disaster that is incredibly silent, terrifyingly silent. Some species are so cunning that they mix a dose of local anesthetic in with the poison. That means you will not even feel your skin getting pierced. You dive down to a coral reef, pick up a gorgeously patterned shell to admire. A few seconds later, you just feel your arm go a little numb, and then your muscles collapse. Your respiratory system shuts down, and you will never feel anything else in this world ever again. The scariest thing about this microscopic biological machine is that modern medicine is completely helpless. Because the venom they spray is a constantly changing chemical matrix of hundreds of complex compounds, there is absolutely no successful antivenom created anywhere in the world. There is no magic shot to make the poison evaporate. If you get hit by a cone snail's harpoon, your only survival strategy is lying completely still in the emergency room, having a bunch of medical tubes shoved down your throat so a cold machine can breathe for you. You are forced to be stuck on a pause menu for your life, desperately hoping your body is strong enough to filter out every bit of that evil poison on its own, before your heart officially gives up. A tiny creature can take your life so silently and ruthlessly underwater. But hold on a second. Remember the grain of salt at the beginning of the video? Is not a tiny grain of salt a life-draining machine for all land snails? So why? Why can these venomous demons live their best lives, swimming around freely in an ocean with an uncountable amount of salt? Does not that completely shatter all of their most basic rules of survival? To understand the pure insanity of this biological weapon, we have to look at the numbers. Usually, when you think of poison, you think you need at least a full syringe to take down a giant creature like a human, right? But with the cone snail, just a single drop of its venom contains enough conotoxin to take the lives of more than 20 adults. Let me emphasize that. More than 20 dead people with just one drop of liquid. And exactly how much venom does it take to force your heart to stop forever? It is about 0.000001 ounces, or about 0.029 milligrams. Do you remember the harmless grain of salt on your porch? The thing that could easily kill a land snail if you accidentally poked it? Well, if you compare it to that grain of salt, this 0.029 milligrams of venom is even much smaller. A nearly invisible amount of liquid to the human eye is an irreversible death sentence. You are completely done for. But that brutality is only half the story. What truly gives biologists the chills is the paradox of their own bodies. If a grain of salt is a bloody death sentence for a garden snail, then why do these assassin snails live perfectly fine in an ocean overflowing with sea salt? Does not that completely shatter the basic structural principles of a snail? The secret is that these deep-sea predators have hacked their land-dwelling cousins' most fatal weakness, osmosis. Imagine land snails are like squishy bags full of fresh water. When they touch salt, that salt instantly acts like a ruthless biological vacuum cleaner. It violently sucks all the moisture out of their cells until the snail is nothing but a shriveled, pathetic husk, exactly like a stale piece of toast. That is a stupid biological design flaw, turning them into the easiest targets to bully in nature. However, aquatic snails have spent millions of grueling years optimizing their specs. Instead of constantly fighting against the salt, they decided to join it. The liquid inside their bodies has been perfectly tuned and chemically balanced to perfectly match the salinity of the surrounding ocean. They never get dehydrated simply because their bodies already anticipated that the massive amount of salt would always be there. It is the ultimate biological patch update. It makes sea snails completely immune to the weapon that should have finished them off the very second they met. But be careful. Do not be so quick to think that this stealthy, venomous assassin is the worst creature out there, because hiding in freshwater lakes, there is another type of snail. It does not have a barbed sniper rifle. It does not have a single drop of a neural cocktail. It even looks so boring that you would walk right past it without caring. And yet, That boring creature is indirectly massacring hundreds of thousands of people every year, completely blowing the cone snail's destructive power out of the water. What on earth is really hiding behind that harmless disguise? What turned a normal freshwater snail into the second most terrifying mass destroyer globally? You thought the cone snail with a biological sniper rifle injecting neurotoxins was the worst nightmare underwater? Look at this number. In the entire history of humanity, the killer cone snail has only taken the lives of barely about 30 people. The real final boss, the one holding the most terrifying massacre record in the snail world, is something that looks completely harmless at first glance. Meet the freshwater snail. It has zero venom. It is not hiding a barbed harpoon at all. If you accidentally spot it clinging to a rock by the lake, you will find it as boring, harmless, and dull as the slimy snail on your porch. But do not let that goofy appearance fool you. This seemingly useless creature is indirectly massacring nearly 200,000 people globally every year. That is right, hundreds of thousands of human lives disappear regularly, a death toll way, way higher than any venomous monster at the bottom of the ocean. How the heck does this thing actually kill people? The brutal secret here is that this snail does not hunt. Instead, it turns its own body into a giant incubator, a biological weapons factory for a vicious parasitic flatworm. This parasite burrows into the snail, cloning itself thousands of times over, and then the snail slowly turns the entire surrounding water source into a pool of death. Every day, it silently releases thousands of microscopic larvae into the water. You cannot see them with your naked eye, you cannot hear them, and you definitely will never feel them swimming toward you. These microscopic larvae do not need a high-pressure harpoon to pierce your flesh. They carry a much more terrifying ability. They are literally born to melt human skin. Imagine them as thousands of invisible drops of acid. Just by accidentally stepping into the lake where the snail lives, you absolutely do not need to touch the snail to get infected. Heck, the snails do not even need to know you exist, and they can still take your life. The larvae will automatically melt your epidermis, tunnel through, and burrow straight into your bloodstream. Welcome to the disease called snail fever, also known as schistosomiasis, the second most devastating parasitic pandemic on the planet, right behind malaria. Once they successfully break in, the larvae will hitch a ride through your heart and lungs, swimming along your blood vessels until they find the perfect home, the veins around your liver or bladder. Down there, they grow up, use hooks to latch tightly onto your blood vessel walls, and start multiplying. But the shocking truth is that these adult worms do not directly kill you. The fatal blow actually comes from the thousands of eggs they lay every single day. These eggs are designed like microscopic saw blades, violently tearing through your tissues to find their way back out to the water. But half of them get permanently stuck inside your internal organs. Your immune system detects millions of foreign objects trapped in your liver and intestines, and it instantly goes into total panic mode. The body triggers a massive, continuous, and permanent inflammatory response, ruthlessly leaving behind a mess of scars that destroy your organs from the inside out. The aftermath is just horrifying. It leads to liver failure, bladder cancer, and a terrifying phenomenon where the victim's abdomen swells up, pooling full of fluid until it bulges out like you just swallowed a whole basketball. This is a process of destroying the body slowly, systematically, and is currently torturing more than 240 million people all over the world. But why snails? Why did this devious parasite not choose a fish or some other fast-swimming creature as a host, but absolutely had to choose that sluggish creature? What is really manipulating this ecosystem, turning water into the ultimate trump card for destruction? The final secret lies in the environment itself. In the natural world, water is the most optimal and ruthless transportation system. On dry land, everything is isolated. Pathogens stay in the gut, and venom stays in the fangs. When you are surrounded by things that just sit still and have no idea how to run away, like leaves or rotting logs, there is absolutely no biological reason for your body to waste energy building a venom-laced stabbing weapon. Evolution will never grant you a kill switch if your daily meal is just a plate of salad. But down in the ocean, the fierce pressure of survival has forced the most sluggish creatures to evolve. They either use chemical warfare or they turn into shipyards for parasites to multiply. So, the next time you take a walk and see a land snail leaving a slimy trail on your sidewalk, instead of feeling disgusted, breathe a sigh of relief. The ocean is truly an alternate dimension, where every rule of survival is twisted and distorted. To be completely honest with you guys, when I was digging deep into these dark corners of the ocean to write this script, I actually got goosebumps at the ruthlessness and wonder of nature. Mother Nature really is not as gentle as we think. If you also feel curious, thrilled, and get the chills from these extreme biological facts just like me, then do not hesitate to smash that like button and share this video with your friends. Especially, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Your support is the biggest energy source for me to keep diving into scientific documents and bringing you guys even higher quality videos. And before we part ways, if you think water snails are the absolute limit of terror, you have not seen anything yet. Do you want to know why the coldest, freezing oceans on Earth, where you would think there is no life at all, are actually the birthplace of the largest and deadliest jellyfish on the planet? Click right on the video on the screen to join me in discovering the crazy truth about this jellyfish monster. Goodbye, and see you again deep down at the bottom of the sea.